Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. I'm back with my chatty Safi, who will probably be meowing throughout this entire video because lately she's been loving the plant room and I don't really know why, because she didn't have much interest in it before, but maybe because the weather's warmer and the sun's out a lot more. She has been hanging out in here with me every single day and it is super cute. So I thought it would only be fitting to have her here for this video, but in case you didn't guess from the thumbnail, we're gonna be talking about Monstera today and why I think they are truly the best plant for lazy plant ownership, which is what I love. I definitely love more laid back plants that don't need as little attention as succulents per se, but don't need as much as maybe an alocasia. So I just think it is the perfect balance, and I'm gonna go over my entire collection with you guys and just show them off a little bit. So we'll get started with me just putting saffron down and I'll get out the first plant. First up is a plant that I recently put up on a pole. Thank you, Saffron. I told you guys she's just gonna talk the whole video, but this is my Monstera pinnatipartita. These are the leaves. This is a juvenile version of this plant. I bought it, I wanna say back in 2022. I got it as a rehab. I got a pretty big one for about $50, like it was huge. I ended up cutting it, selling a lot of the cuttings as they grew, but I wanted to keep this one in order to get it up a pole and hopefully mature it, because this plant, like most Monstera, will fenestrate and it looks gorgeous as it matures. So I'm hoping that one day I'll be able to do that. I did leave this one in a prop box for a long time after I propagated it, so I feel like it could be farther along by now, but it was clearly very forgiving. It kept growing. It was a mid-cut that only had one leaf. So while it was in the prop box, it gave me about 4 more and I'm not mad about it. Like I said, it's super easygoing, super forgiving. It will let you know when it's thirsty. The leaves will get limp and curl a bit. Now this one has always been a little bit curled just because it was the donor leaf. So that can happen sometimes with plants that you take cuttings from. Other than that, this plant is super easygoing. I don't see it around a lot in people's collections on the internet and things like that. It isn't flashy or anything. It's not variegated, but I think it's got really nice texture, and I do think it's a lot easier going than the Monstera Peru, which I did used to have in my collection, but it was just a cutting and it didn't do so well for me. So this one is a lot easier. I don't think it puts out runners as much as a Peru does, but if you do get this plant, you are going to want to put it on a moss pole. This one I just watered, so it does look a little limp right now, but I promise it will perk up. This is my Monstera Thai constellation that I got as a cutting, and it has grown this leaf for me. Hopefully working on a new one here soon. This is from the old stock of the TC Thai constellation, so it is supposed to be a lot hardier than the new stock. And with my experience, I did have a new stock Thai constellation that did pass. It got this like weird disease looking thing and just died very suddenly. Whereas this one has been very forgiving. It has rooted really nicely. I am trying the method where I keep it above the medium, just because I did get it as a cutting that was only partially rooted with an aerial root. So I was very nervous about it and I wanted to make sure that it didn't rot, because the one thing that is not easy about ties and albos is they are prone to rot. Mints as well, I don't have a mint, but things like that, they are very prone to rot as a cutting. So I wanted to give it as much air as possible, reduce the risk of rot as much as I can, and it's rewarded me very kindly. There are roots all the way down the cup that I put it in. I do have water in there right now so I can soak, and I'll dump that out later just because I don't want it to rot at all. But this is also a very easygoing plant. I love that it is a large form Monstera because I've been dreaming about just having a giant Monstera in my house. I feel like that would look so cool, and I know I'm a long way from that with this plant, but I'm hoping that one day it can happen, and it'll just be really cool to see. Hopefully this is the plant that makes it. I have a lot of moving ahead of me in my life just because my husband is in the military. So maybe not all of these exact plants are going to make it through the military life, but I'm hoping because this one is supposed to have hardier genetics that it will make it. If not, I can always get another one. I am maybe looking at some point to get a second one just because I really liked having 2 Thai constellations, maybe looking for one with a little bit higher variegation. I do really like sectoral variegation on plants. So as opposed to this like bird poop look, I don't mind it, but I do like the sectoral better, or at least to have nice patches of it like this leaf has. This new leaf doesn't have too much of it at all, but that is my Thai constellation. The next Monstera in my collection is my standleyana aurea, which did just get a pole extension. So this is the 3rd pole that I have it on right now, and it is doing so well. It is not the fastest growing plant out there, but it's so easy going. And when I tell you guys, get one, any variegated Monstera really, or any variegated plant, get one with a nice balance of variegation, because I don't worry about browning with my plants at all. In my Texas climate, I don't have the best humidity. I don't have variegation that's too high, and I don't have variegation that's too low so that I worry about reversion. I do have one plant that is very low variegation that I will talk about later, but for the most part, I really like to wait with plants and buy one that has the right amount of variegation, that is the right cost, and it'll just make your life so much easier. Specifically with this Monstera, I got this from E&E Plants out in San Antonio, and I love it. I think it's gorgeous. You do have to worry about runners with these plants, so I really try to stay on top of the pole management. Every time it grows a little bit, I put in more moss. I do need to add some more just because there is a new node forming here, but for the most part, I'm on top of it. Other than that, it is so easy. You can grow them as trailing plants as well, but you are almost 100% guaranteed to have runners on your plant. I don't like the look of runners, so that's why I grow them on a pole, and they're just so easy going that way. This plant roots like crazy too. Even as cuttings, standleyanas root like crazy, so these are roots coming out of the bottom, and they're just doing really well. I'm not sure if this plant fenestrates. I want to say it doesn't, because I haven't seen any pictures of it fenestrating, but you never know. For me, the leaves have all stayed the same size. I've seen some where the leaves are a little bit bigger, but not too much, and it's just a really nice plant. Like I don't normally like aurea at all. Any kind of philodendron, monstera, hoya, I really stay away from aurea plants, except this one. I think it's not too yellow, like it's not in your face. It does fade off to a cream, almost like a Thai constellation cream, but it's so easy. It is just so easy going, and it's very steadily growing. I feel like there's always a little leaf popping out. So this is just a plant that would really wow people that would come in and look at your collection. My husband has a lot of people over all the time, and there are certain plants that they're always like, oh my gosh, wow. All of the plants back there, people are really interested in, this being one of them, and it just doesn't require a lot of work, and that is the best part about it. This is probably my favorite Monstera in my entire collection. It's between this and one of the albos, but this is my Monstera siltepecana El Salvador, and while this plant may be hard to find, it is probably the easiest Monstera that I have, and it grows like a weed. It's also recently got a pole extension. It is on its 3rd pole as well, though this type of pole I have is a bit longer than the other one. So this one just grows like crazy. I've had it for almost a year now, and I got it as legitimately a couple of just potted up cuttings, and it's grown this much. This is the best way to show it sideways. It is an absolute weed. It does fenestrate. I feel like it gets more silver as the leaves mature, and it will give out runners if you don't keep it up on a pole. But honestly, I don't think it's that bad. It's not hard to just keep extending the pole. If it starts to get too tall, like reaching the ceiling, I could always cut it and start from top cuts again. But I think it is worth the hunt for it, just for these gorgeous silvery leaves. Like I said, super easy. I feel like I do almost nothing to this plant except water, fertilizer, pull. That's it, and it will reward you kindly. I feel like it is sizing up a little bit, though the ones at the top, I was a little bit behind on the pull extensions, so I feel like they're not quite as big as they could be. But it truly is just the most easygoing plant that I have. It is one of the fastest growing plants in my entire collection. I feel like it's between this and my heartleaf philodendrons for sure. Of course, I have them all on poles, so that helps when they grow really fast. But I cannot recommend this plant enough. I know it is more difficult to find. It took me several years to actually find one, and I really wanted to find one in person. If you are looking on the internet, I'm sure it is a lot easier to find, but finding it in person was super rewarding, so I would highly recommend it if you can. I did find it at a garden center in Austin, so it's not impossible. It can be done, it can be done. But if you're looking for any plant that I'm talking about in this video, this is the one that is just going to be so forgiving, so easygoing, and I feel like my personal recommendation, if you could only pick one out of any plant, I would go with this one for sure. Saffron has had a few words to say, if you noticed throughout the video, so I figured I would give her some love while we finally talk about the last plant. And I have 3 of these, but it's going to be my Monstera albos. So I'll start with my newest one and end with my oldest one. This one you guys would have seen me get from Wild Roots Nursery pretty recently. It is working really hard on a new leaf. I got it as a cutting for $32, which I feel like is a steal given the fact that it already has roots and it is growing. This has more than doubled in size since I got it to this little growth point. So I'm very excited about it. The variegation on the donor leaf is really promising. I wish that they would have left the whole leaf just so I could see the whole thing. But I understand a lot of sellers like to chop due to browning and whatnot. I don't really care about the browning, honestly. It's just a fact of life with plants. So it's fine either way, but I'm very excited and I will keep you updated on the growth on this one. There's not too much to add about it right now because I haven't had it for too long, but this is my first experience buying an albo as truly a cutting, and it's going really well so far. I was very nervous about it just because of all of the stories I've heard about them being prone to rot, same with the Thai constellation, but truly this has been very easy so far, so it's assuaging those fears and giving me a little bit more confidence that maybe I could chop up this next albo I'm gonna show you. This is probably the biggest plant in my collection and it is so hard to show off. I know the leaves always look curled in, but I promise I water it like once or twice a week because it's so big. But this is my low variegation albo, and I wouldn't exactly recommend doing this if you're going to pay a lot of money for an albo. Don't get one that looks like this. I did purchase this one because it was really big and it was only $50. I purchased it knowing that it might revert, but I thought it'd be a cool project at some point. For now, I've just been watching it grow and seeing what it does. It did give me this beautiful leaf followed by this totally ugly, not a lot of variegation, just like a little few specks over here that the camera won't even pick up. So this one has just been really interesting to watch. I do think since I have a lot more confidence growing the cutting that I have been from Wild Roots, I might chop this year. It would free up this pole anyway for me to use for my final albo, but we'll see what I end up doing with it. Either way, it is a very easygoing plant, as most Monstera are. I just give it the fertilizer, keep it attached to the pole as best as I can. This is a small form albo, so I'm not worrying about the leaf sizing up too much. Other than that, just keeping it watered. It lives near a window, it doesn't mind the bright light, and it just has a good time, which is what all Monstera do. They're just here to have a good time, and they're so easy. They're just so easy. I feel like I've put Monstera through a lot, just moving with them. I used to, in my apartment, I had a lot less light. Now I have a lot more light in Texas, but it's a lot drier, and they're just thriving through all of it, which is why I cannot recommend them enough. Finally, the Monstera that I cannot stop talking about on this channel, my beautiful albo, my original one that I have had for almost 3 years now. She's just so gorgeous. I know I talked about her in my March houseplant favorites, but really I just love this plant so much. It is so easygoing. This one really has put up with every single move. Everything. This plant has been through every single condition that you could possibly imagine, and it has done so well. I got it as a cutting, but it had like 4 leaves when I got it, and it was already pretty much rooted, and it was sold to me as a low variegation cutting, but I mean, I don't think the new leaf looks like it has a lot of green, so I'm a little concerned about that. But actually the stem is half white, so I don't know. I don't know what that leaf's gonna do. Honestly, it could be either, it could be a half moon, it could be anything. I'm not gonna mess with it and unfurl it because I could damage it, and I really take a lot of pride in how good this plant looks overall. I know the leaves are like all over the place because it is facing the window here as well as facing this, because it sits right next to the cabinet, so the leaves just kind of go whatever which way, but I really don't mind. I feel like it gives it a more 360 look, like there is a leaf on every side that you could look at and enjoy, and it's just been so easy. When I first got this, I was so afraid because of all the stories I had heard about albos, but this has been one of the easiest plants in my collection. It does not grow super fast. With the exception of my El Salvador and my standleyana aurea, my Monstera really don't grow that fast for me, but I don't mind it either because that means they're a lot less upkeep, and that is what one of the biggest perks about them, I think. I don't have to give them pole extensions as often. I don't have to tie them up to their current poles as often. I fertilize them every 6 months with my slow release fertilizer. I don't have to pot them very often. This plant, in the 3 years almost that I've had it, I've repotted it twice. So that just goes to show you that they're really not a lot of work at all. And as a lazy plant parent, that is just my game. These are perfect for me. So if I just end up one day saying, hey guys, I own 10 albos now, you're gonna know why, because I love plants that are just really easygoing, really happy to just be alive, grow steadily, don't have any issues. I've never had a pest issue with my Monsteras. I just let them live. They have great aerial roots too for propagating. So I do know that when I finally get the courage to propagate my other albo, it has some awesome aerial roots, and that's gonna make it even easier to propagate. So they're just a lot of fun, and I cannot recommend these albos enough, especially. So that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed not only Saffron's commentary throughout the entire thing, because she just loves to meow all the time, but I hope you enjoyed my pretty Monsteras and me gushing about how easy they are, because truly they are the most low maintenance plants in my entire collection, and I just love seeing them every time I come into this room. Maybe one day I'll just go full crazy and like only have albos for a while, but they're just so much fun. They're so much fun to grow, and I cannot recommend them enough. But if you like this video, make sure to give Saffron and I here a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.